We're back. Another edition of Stochastic Hall of Fame and a huge week for the Stochastic avatars to top all of the leaderboards. You want to get involved? All you got to do, download one of those beautiful avatars from stochastic.com/HOF. Use it wherever it is you play. And when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, tweet us your wins, preferably with a kind message at StochasticHOF on Twitter. Let's get it started. We got 2 Ring of Honor winners this week. Huge, which means you get the custom Stochastic Hall of Fame ring in an engraved display case. It's a beautiful thing. I already ordered all of them. And first one, Kevin Roach, $200,000. Thank you, Stochastic. Finally won a big tournament and couldn't have done it without you. 10 entries in the Summer Sand Trap. Kevin Roach, $200K. The ring is on the way, brother. And also, Aaron Costa, this guy at the top every time I look. Shout out to Stochastic Hall of Fame. 50K in the early relay throw the other week. Silver tier as well. Dave Oliver, our man, Elway's Army, taking it down 10K. Content continues to crush. Sims for full slates and great tools to use for MLB Showdown. Thank you, guys. Silver tier, which means you're getting not only a month of Sims, but a week of any other sport as well. LS Dom, I can get used to this. Second place in Minimax using the Sims Lite. Perfect tool for those who still want to use the Sims, but are also on a budget. Congrats, Dom. Welcome to the silver tier. Second place for $1,500. And James Cook, Sims tool for the win, $10,000. Tommy Stokey, what's up, Tommy? Appreciate Hunter Green leaving it all out there last night. And the Mets bullpen leading me to a Minimax win, $7,500 in the Micro Minimax, first place. And Kyle, when you go from 32nd to 2nd in 4 minutes with the 2 final guys on hole 18, unreal win today. Thanks to Stochastic. Y'all's crew is amazing. Keep up the great work. 6K for Kyle. Shout out to Kyle. And Adam, big shout out to Stochastic on always providing some of the best DFS advice and insight. Nice little afternoon delight cash on the early slate. 5K for Adam. And Cleandre Hood, $1,000. Shout out to the team for great content and tools, second to none. Appreciate you, brother. Congrats. And Brett Lindsay, 5th time's the charm. Finally, I got one that I know will stick. No ties today. Thanks to all you guys for all the info. I'm looking forward to getting that free month. You got it, man. And Johnny finally got my first Hall of Fame win. Shout out to the whole Stochastic team. Crew is enjoyable to watch, especially Caitlin Lindquist. And finally, Steve Prosser, having a great weekend thanks to your content and lineup construction advice on both the MLB strategy and MLB Live Before Lock shows. Shout out to the crew for entertaining and informative info. And shout out to you as well, Steve. Remember, all you got to do to join, download the avatar at stochastic.com/HOF, whichever one you want. Use it wherever it is you play. When you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the entry, tweet us your wins. It's Stochastic HOF, and we'll see you back here for the next one.
You're such a great producer. What is happening, and welcome to MLB Live Before Lock, final one of the weekday, and then we're heading into the weekend. So hopefully you guys have had a good week, and hopefully also as you're watching this, you like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're sponsored by one of Eric's favorite ways to play DFS, DraftKings Pick 6. I can't play it from New Jersey. Eric could play it from Los Angeles, and I'm quite jealous of him. I would like to be able to play on Pick 6, but I can't quite yet. So if you guys do have the ability to play Pick 6, go check it out over on DraftKings. You can find it in the tabs up in the top where it says like Sportsbook, DFS, Rainmakers, all that stuff. Click where it says Pick 6. Check out the contest they have. I'm sure that Eric will be able to help guide you with some of the Pick 6 options that he likes for today. But we've also got a big slate to talk about considering FanDuel and DraftKings. We've got a much bigger slate than what we had yesterday. Eric, how are you doing tonight?
Doing fantastic. Shout out Greg Ehrenberg, second yesterday in the $3 mini max. He had a great lineup that jumped to the top. One of the great things is diversifying your portfolio in MLB DFS. I know we had talked a lot about the Detroit LA game, but that LA pitcher, oh boy, that Davies fellow, oh my Lord, just mowing dudes down from Detroit yesterday. It was incredible to watch. He's got some good stuff, but Greg had a really good portfolio. I went through it on the post-contest sim, something that you definitely want to be checking out here at Stochastic. But I know he had a ridiculous, redonkulous $500,000 NBA season, but I still am always impressed when people can jump outside, jump into multiple sports, and be profitable. Congrats to Greg. He practices what he preaches.
One thing that was really funny about yesterday in reviewing the slate, I can't remember this happening at any other point in time this season. The number one pitcher to roster yesterday by ROI ended up being the pitcher from the Los Angeles Angels. The number one stack to roster by our simulated ROI ended up being the Detroit Tigers against the pitcher for the Los Angeles Angels. So in hindsight, it was a spot you really wanted to play both sides of, ideally considering the price points on both sides. You probably wanted like half your lineups to have the Angels pitcher. You probably wanted like half your lineups to have the Tigers offense, which wasn't quite how my lineups ended up shaking out. But I kind of wish that's how I built them out in hindsight. But either way, it ended up going pretty well. The big annoying part of yesterday's slate was Tyler Stevenson getting scratched after the slate started. So like if you looked at our post-contest sims, the worst stack to play on the slate ended up being the Reds. But it wasn't really anybody's fault if they played the Reds. It was really because you had a catcher in there who ended up being projected for 0 fantasy points because he got scratched right as the game started.
Yeah, right as the game started, there was nothing you could do about it. There was no information until after the game had locked. One of our buddies, he ended up finishing, having some really good lineups in the top 10 of the $18 as well. And he had Stevenson in both. So that was a little bit of a bummer for him. I was texting back and forth with him. But overall, ended up being a really good night for me. Ended up being a really good night for you. Looking forward to this slate. And then also looking forward to some UFC 303 this weekend. Yet another thing that Greg absolutely smashes. I think he's had like 3 or 4 mini max W's where he's at least split or solo binked for that main iteration. I'm going to be playing that tomorrow on DK as well. I've been getting more into the UFC DFS streets. Really excited for 303. Check out Greg's video for that as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then also sponsored by Pick Six, like we said, and Eric's got shorts up on the YouTube channel. If you guys are able to play Pick Six. One other thing I've got rooting interest in over the weekend also is Aaron Rai winning a PGA tournament. He's currently 1 stroke off the lead.
I took the week off. So I have played PGA DFS every single week for I think 5 or 6 years in a row. And I looked at the board this week and I just didn't feel like betting it. I didn't feel like researching it. I put Jesse's stuff up for him. So downside of me, he sends over to me like the shark slams, the fish food, was going through it. And I'm like, I really don't feel like doing a lot of work for this. I've been really hardcore into the betting streets and the MLB streets and have some stuff that's really working out well over there. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to devote any extra time to the PGA. And the guy I've bet in every PGA tournament for like 4 years consecutively is won back at like what? 35, 40 to 1.
Yeah.
I am just tilted right now.
Yeah, so I have 2 different Rye bets that I'd send you. One is him just 35 to 1 to win outright. And the other one I really like, which looks really good right now.
That's a better market. That's unreal.
What's that?
The 28 to 1 one without Tom Kim, without Akshay Bhatia, without everybody in that main like 1 through 5 section of the tournament. That's an amazing market.
Yeah, so those are my rooting interests. It'd be cool. I would enjoy it very much if Aaron Rye could end up winning. And yeah, he's 12 under, Bhatia's 13 under, and Rye's currently on 18 right now.
So I am down $1,900 betting Aaron Rye in PG. I just pulled out my spreadsheet. $1,900 I've devoted to this guy over the course of 2.5 years, and I have $0 on the comeback from him. So congrats on the W already, Greg.
Yeah, so it appears you will not be getting your money back on Aaron Rye. Maybe I will, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just have a good CLV bet that doesn't end up pulling through. But as far as the baseball slate goes, one thing we have to address before we start is the weather, because there's a couple of games that do look pretty iffy. We've got potential for rain in both Chicago White Sox taking on the Colorado Rockies, as well as the Kansas City Royals at home against the Cleveland Guardians. How are you approaching these 2 games, Eric? And what is it that you consider to be the risk of these games?
All right. So I was going back and forth with some people in the premium Discord earlier. And then right now, this is still the game plan for me. I took Colorado, Chicago out of my player pool. I took Cleveland and Kansas City out of my player pool. Now, the Cleveland, Kansas City one, I do expect to start. The Colorado, Chicago one, I'm thinking we might get a PPD before that game even starts. But Cleveland, Kansas City, I'm pretty sure starts. If it starts, it is a gold mine for pick six. I'm going to be jamming Tristan McKenzie, less than 15.5 fantasy points. Jose Ramirez, less than 8.5 fantasy points. Stephen Kwan, less than 7.5 fantasy points. I am going to be shorting David Fry. I'm going to be shorting everything I possibly can in that game, because if it has one pitch go off in it in pick six, you're playing peer-to-peer fantasy, you're not going to get limited because you were doing something really, really sharp. You're not going to get told that, all of a sudden you can't get more exposure down. It's peer-to-peer. I'm playing other people, and I think it is a phenomenal opportunity that if you are going to keep it in your player pool and have a little bit of exposure in DFS, short it on pick six. Have your entire portfolio working for you, because I'm telling you, you can put 5-6 pick cards together of this entire game. 2.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs for Miguel Garcia. 2.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs for Sal Perez. This is an unbelievable opportunity on pick six to have correlated 10x cards minimum coming in if that game starts. So for me, pay attention to it. We still have 2 hours before that game would be, hitting first pitch, starting at 8:10 p.m. Eastern time, 5:10 out on the West Coast. Pay attention to the weather. Keep your Twitter updated. We'll be in the premium Discord. I'm going to be sitting here as well. But what an unbelievable opportunity for pick six if that game starts.
Yeah, I am not playing either of these games in DFS. So the weather in Chicago looks really terrible. It's supposed to start raining in the next hour or so, and then it's 70% chance of rain for the entire night. So that's a game that I have zero interest in, think it's very risky. Then if we go ahead and look at the Kansas City weather, see what the latest is for Kansas City.
Not great, Bob. Not great.
So the Kansas City weather, we have currently no rain at the start of the game, but then somewhere midway through the game, there is a 95% chance of rain, and that's expected to hold through the rest of the night. So these are two games that I think the most likely scenario is they don't end up playing. As far as the Kansas City games, maybe that Kansas City game starts but doesn't finish. But even for that one, the rain seems so likely that I think it's more reasonable they just say hey, let's just call this game off and not play it at all. So I'm not going to play either of those games in DFS. And the slate is big enough to where it's not like we have to play those spots.
Yeah, so my two favorite plays, if you're looking on pick six right now, which, Greg knows and most people know, I play most of my exposure on pick six now at this point in time. It's peer-to-peer, makes it way better. Use promo code Lindy6, anything will work over there. But Alec Marsh, less than 15.5 outs, and fantasy points. Tristan McKenzie, less than 15.5 fantasy points. If this game starts, you're looking at 35 to 50 minutes into it, rain coming, and it being washed out. If this game starts and you have those two, awesome. If you need to pivot because they postpone this game like they probably should before it goes to first pitch, you've got Cincinnati, St. Louis, you've got Chicago, Milwaukee waiting on the wings there. From a DFS perspective, playing for your lineups, you still have two games that you can get exposure to. I think Jonathan India, my favorite prop to be looking at in the later one, 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. He's now leading off. He's hitting a bajillion for a bajillion in the month of June. The guy has gone absolutely postal. It's been beautiful to watch. You've got that. You can correlate it by shorting some Palante props, some things of that nature. He's got 15.5 outs. I think that's a pretty decent back that's juiced towards the under at sports books. Pretty great spot tonight for pick six. Probably the best night I've seen for pick six MLB of the year if this weather comes to fruition.
Couple things to mention here, just to clarify something. BX44 says there's no rain expected in Cleveland until tomorrow. The game is in Kansas City, though. So look at the weather in Kansas City, not for the weather in Cleveland. And then also, as per usual, shout out to our guy, Chris Williams, who heading into the weekend, he gifted out 5 YouTube memberships to the people in chat. So Chris, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Lots of ways to support us here, like watching the shows. You get sign up for a Stochastic package using the link below, or the simplest way to do it is you like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help support our content simply with a couple clicks of the button there. ready to start talking about pitchers, or is there any kind of other overarching thoughts you have before we get into this?
Yeah, this is very important. The main slate locks in 7 minutes for pick six. So if you are looking to play tonight, you want to jump in on this main slate. I'm reserving a ton of backloaded lineups where I'm just taking the 6 and I'm taking all lesses. So if you want to follow me to this point where we have a huge opportunity in pick six, again, nothing is guaranteed, but at the same time, this weather looks pretty darn certain that it's going to be brutality. Reserve a bunch of these lineups now. You have 7 minutes. Just take a bunch of lesses from Cleveland, Kansas City, and figure it out once we get closer to first pitch. Again, I'll be in the premium Discord if you guys have access there. I'll jump into the DFS section as well. Hit me up on X at Eric Lindquist. But it is probably the best opportunity we've had for pick six of the entire year because this weather is like so unbelievably perfect for shorting every single prop.
You really confused me for a second when you said, hurry, the slate locks in 10 minutes. Like, what are you talking? And then you said the pick six. I was like, okay. Got you. See, I didn't realize that they include all of the games.
Miami Philly is included, and that starts in 6 minutes.
All right. Good to know if you guys are going to go and play pick six. So that's why we want to make sure we got that pick six analysis for you guys there right out of the gate. And if you are a Stochastic sub and you're in our Discord channel, hit me up and we could answer any questions that we have in there. But let's go and start looking at the pitching options for today. And I don't even know how this is possible, but we once again don't have a single pitcher priced over 10K. We've got like every team playing on DraftKings tonight. And the most expensive pitcher, it is Logan Gilbert at 9,900 pitching against your Minnesota Twins. He's also 29% owned. Another pitcher that's popular in the 9K range, it is Charlie Morton at 21% ownership. We got two pitchers in the 10-ish% ownership range, 10% to Ronel Blanco at 9,800. Logan Webb is 15% owned, even though he's pitching against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Then 5% ownership going to Max Scherzer in a tough matchup on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. If you're paying up for one pitcher today, Eric, are you going to, is it like an earthquake over there? Your screen is shaking.
Oh, I was just trying to get as many people, because I have multiple DMs from people about, hey, what are you doing? Well, hey, what are you doing? And so I'm just getting to all the premium Discord people as fast as I can. And then I just sent a mass message to the fantasy plays people, updating them on what I'm planning to do for pick six.
All right. Yeah. So that makes sense. I was like looking at your screen, like, why is everything shaking over there by Eric? But cool.
Flying good as fast as possible. 5 minutes left. Yeah.
Good info to have. So in case you didn't hear while you
I did hear what you said, and I can answer it. Logan Gilbert by a lot. It's going up against my Minnesota Twins, the best ballpark you can possibly be in up there in Seattle. Over a 3-year rolling average, it's been about average for homers, but everything else in terms of run creation, smaller real estate, but longer fences, not great for hitting. Ronel Blanco, he is a guy that I'm going to get to a little bit, but the Mets don't really strike out. You have Charlie Morton against Pittsburgh. It's a little bit warmer, 4.2 opposition total in our top stacks tool. Not something that I want to go nuts with. Logan Gilbert, Max Scherzer, not going to pitch far enough. Logan Webb doesn't have enough strikeout stuff. It is truly Logan Gilbert or bust up top for me.
Yeah, I don't find the ownership to be all that much of an issue either, even though he's projected to be in around 30% of the field's lineups. I personally have him in 37% of my lineups. So I do like going to Logan Gilbert against the Minnesota Twins. I think that if you're paying up for one pitcher today, he's certainly the guy to go to. Charlie Morton's also quite popular, comparable in ownership to Logan Gilbert. If I'm looking to roster one of the popular pay-up options, it's going to be Gilbert. I'm overweight to the field on him. I'm underweight to the field on Morton. As far as guys like Ronel Blanco, Logan Webb, Max Scherzer, here's the different issues I have with these different pitchers. With Scherzer, he missed so much of the season. And I know he's Max Scherzer. We've seen him come back from injuries and just pretty quickly have a ramped up pitch count. I still expect he's going to be somewhat limited, and the matchup's really hard against the Baltimore Orioles. How deep realistically do you think Scherzer goes into the game?
75 pitches is what I said last night is like an absolute ceiling. I don't see it being beyond that.
Yeah, so for me, Scherzer, like if he's in a lineup or two, that's okay. Hard to prioritize him. Morton's a little bit too popular for me. I don't understand the Logan Webb ownership. I know that he's pitched really well this year. His underlying numbers are much better than what his ERA suggests, but I can't get to him at 15% ownership pitching against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Another guy who's in a couple of lineups for me, but I'm going to be underweight to the field on Logan Webb.
All right, 3 minutes left. Pick six. I'm throwing it back out there again. 3.5 earned runs for Alec Marsh, 3.5 earned runs for Tristan McKenzie. I am just jamming less on both of those. It is so crazy to imagine a scenario where they give up 4 earned runs in a game that might go 3 innings.
There we go. There we go. Good information there
know.
from Eric. And then also, I do know this about pick six. You can alter your lineups there after the slate lock. So you get your lineups in now, and then you can tinker around with them, change them later. And if you wanted to as well, something like how Eric and I play DFS, you could hold some spots kind of like in reserve, maybe some over-unders that you like but don't love for later games, and then you can pivot to better options that become available for earlier spots. You kind of reserve lineup spots like that if you guys are concerned with the weather. But getting back to the pitchers here, anything else you want to add about these 9K guys?
About the 9K guys, I like the other, I like the 8K range for tournaments to try to really get different. I mean, Bailey Ober's pulling crazy ownership. It's him and Gilbert that are the best on this slate. Nick Pivetta is going to be fun to talk about. We have a 7K range where you can take some deep shots. Drew Thorpe would have been fun if the weather was better, but up in the 9K range, Charlie Morton's pulling quite a bit of ownership. I do prefer him over Logan Webb, even with the 5-6% disparity. That's not enough when you're talking about Logan Webb having to take on the Dodgers, period. And Charlie Morton, I still think the strikeout stuff going up against a Pittsburgh team that really likes to be ineffective against righties here. 24.7% K rate, 82 WRC plus is the 3rd worst mark in baseball. Fire it up.
Let's talk about the 8K range where we have another Bailey Ober ends up being popular like every time he pitches because he only pitches against like the Seattle Mariners, the Chicago White Sox. So like a Bailey Ober, and it's always like, do I really want to play like a chalky Bailey Ober who's kind of at a premium price tag? And then the answer just almost always ends up being yes. In the Seattle, it's funny. The Mariners actually have one of the best records in baseball, but every pitcher who ever pitches against them is always popular. Their offense certainly doesn't suck. They just strike out a lot, and it makes for a lot of fantasy upside going up against them. Earlier in the year, I thought there was a lot of pitchers who were over-owned against Seattle, but it just ended up being the case that even if they score runs, pitchers go ahead and they put up like 7, 8, 9 strikeouts against them pretty consistently. So Bailey Ober at $8,800, typically not a price point I would want to pay for him. I typically want to play him at this kind of chalk, but then I run my lineups through the Sims, Eric, and it's kind of hard to get away from him just because of how often that Seattle Mariners offense strikes out.
I'm 100% with you. There's no way looking at the board that Seattle 98 WRC plus, they're about league average against righties, but 28% K rate. Like Bailey Ober, the amount of ownership he is more than warranted. And I'm not a big Bailey Ober stan. I'm not a Minnesota Twins starting pitching stan, if you will, for my team. But there's no doubt that there's a ton of upside for him here tonight, and a pretty high floor considering the strikeout upside. I mean, he's been 6.5, 7.5 all the live long day.
I'm interested to see what contrarian option you like in this range, because you had said you like somebody in the 8K range who is a contrarian option. If you look at the ownership on the slate, Bailey Ober, 32% owned. You got Nick Pivetta at 14% ownership. Everybody else is sub 10% owned in this price range. Yusei Kikuchi is 9% owned. Every other pitcher is 1%. So who is the contrarian option you like rostering in this 8K range?
Why is Landon Knack at 0.7% ownership? It's in San Francisco. Landon Knack has been like legitimately okay. Now the strikeout stuff hasn't been crazy, don't get me wrong, but we have so much concern and guys that are still pulling ownership with Kikuchi in a matchup against the Yankees. Nick Pivetta, 12.5% ownership. We obviously know how good San Diego can be against righties. And then they also don't strike out against righties, 18.2% K rate. I feel like Landon Knack at 0.7% is a little egregious considering 3.28 expected ERA. The Dodgers need some length and some ability out of some of these guys. He is a 26-year-old starter, so by Greg's math, there's no way that he could possibly be good as a 26-year-old who's just starting to enter the big leagues. But you look at some of his grading on some of his pitches. The four-seam fastball seems okay. The slider, I think, is going to start generating some strikeout stuff. He has a changeup and a curveball that he can add to the mix as well. He throws the curveball a lot to lefties, sitting there. It's a pitch he doesn't utilize a lot, but he uses it almost exclusively to lefties. Those all have north of a 23% whiff percentage. I just think that this is an ownership at 0.7% that if he's going to be down there in the doldrums at 8K, There's nothing at 7K that's pulling any ownership. And then it becomes like 6K Slade Ciccone, Frankie Montas. I'm just a little bit thrown off from a DFS perspective that Landon Knack has nothing coming in on him, considering he's been an actually good functional pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question about why he's so low owned, it's mostly, I assume, because of just the strikeout rate. I am overweight to the field on Landon Knack, not like insanely so, but I have him in 5% of lineup, so I don't mind him as a contrarian option at all. Pretty good spot for him against the San Francisco Giants. Good pitcher's park. The real concern, though, is what's the upside for a pitcher who doesn't work super deep into the game and then also only has a 17.6% strikeout rate. So that's where I question, like, what is the upside? But on the flip side, because he has only pitched more than 5 innings once the entire season. So that's the concern, is like, what's the realistic ceiling for him? But the ownership is so low that maybe he is somebody who's able to work a little bit deeper into games and just hasn't been allowed to do it yet. So I'm willing to take shots at him when he's only 1% owned.
Yeah, and it's a 3.54 ERA, 5.04 xFIP at AAA, but Oklahoma City and then PCL, it's a disaster. It's such a hard league to pitch in that it's almost impossible to mine anything out of it. And he had better strikeout stuff there for sure. You would expect that to be the case for most people getting called up. He had a 26.5% K rate. It's down to 17.6% Ks over the course of this early going for him. But like, sub 1% is just so weird to me, because in San Francisco, you talk about like over the course of the last couple of years playing DFS, it just feels like a default pitcher's park that you can rely on a number of arms. I haven't projected higher than any other pitcher on the slate, 8K or below. There isn't a single pitcher that I have projected above him. Slade Ciccone, I know a lot of places have him projected ever so slightly higher. So if you want to go that direction against Oakland, be my guest. Oakland has the second highest K rate against righties. They're basically Seattle light. It's incredible the amount of strikeout upside you have. And then you don't have nearly the kind of concerns that you have that Seattle can bring to the table because they have actual major league hitters. But I just want to make the case for having like 15-20% Landon Knack in your lineups like I'm planning to have tonight, because this is such low ownership and there's not a ton coming in for Nick Pivetta. I'm going to have a little. Yusei Kikuchi, I'm going to have a little, but like they're in such more difficult spots. And Landon Knack is in the second or third best ballpark for pitching. And Landon Knack has been very, very serviceable at run prevention, that if the strikeouts show up at all, 4, 5, 6 here, there's a chance you get 5 or 6 out of him. And not only do you want him, you might actually need him at 8K.
Yeah, so like I said, Landon Knack, not prioritizing him or anything, but I've got 5% of him when he's projected for less than, we got him at 0.9% projected ownership. I don't mind taking shots at him in tournaments at all. If we go ahead and we look at the next range of starting pitchers, we have in the 7K range, once again, not really all that much ownership. The only pitcher that's pulling ownership in the 7K range is Drew Thorpe, is 11% owned against the Colorado Rockies, but I'm avoiding that game due to the weather risk. So that's somebody who I'm underweight to the field to because I have none of that game. So I'm shorting Drew Thorpe due to weather. Is there anybody else who stands out to you in the 7K range?
Not really. I took Tristan McKenzie out, but I'm going to have tons on pick 6. Somebody said before, oh, is it a pick 6 show? I just wanted to get all that information out before it locked, and now we'll just be talking DFS the rest of the way. But Drew Thorpe, he was down there. I thought about playing some Dakota Hudson. I'm not going to play him either down there at 5,300. But in the 7K range, I do have a little bit of Andre Palante. It's not something that I expect to end up working out a majority of the time here, but he's 7,700, and it's just a Cincinnati team that at the same time that I expect them to go pretty heavy, I'm gonna have some Cincinnati for sure, and I think the ownership's already there on a number of their batters. We talked about Marte before the show, but 4th highest strikeout rate against righties and only an 87 WRC plus. They get out of Cincinnati, which we know can be a great hitter's ballpark. I think there's enough there where like I can get to a little bit, but I only have 6%. So like I'm making a stand with Landon Knack in the 8K range, but here, like Colin Rea has a much better ERA than expected ERA. I think there's a case for the Cubs potentially being a strikeout upside spot. Albert Suarez, I'm going to take some shots on too. Texas has been abysmal against righty bats, but I don't want to go crazy by any means. Again, 4% of him. Kenta Maeda against the Angels, I have 8%. So he's the guy I'm getting the most of at the 7K range, but I don't have double-digit ownership on a single person in this range.
Yeah, the pitcher I have the most of is Kenta Maeda at 6% ownership. And I think Maeda is super washed. I, in general, have no interest in Kenta Maeda. He's been terrible this season. He's old. His velocity's down. He's not generating strikeouts. He gives up a lot of hard contact. It's a matchup against the Angels. He's cheap. He's pulling no ownership. So, like I said, I've got Kenta Maeda in exactly 6.7% of my lineups. Yeah. That's the most I have of any of these pitchers here. It would be Drew Thorpe, but that game is not a consideration for me.
Yep, 8% Kenta Maeda. I have so much more than you, Greg. It's just an awful, terrible, horrible, no good pitcher, but it's the Angels. I can fire up a little bit.
Let's talk about the punt options. 2 pitchers are picking up ownership for cheap. Frankie Montas at $6,500 against the St. Louis Cardinals. He is 12% owned. And Slade Ciccone is only $6,200 against the Oakland A's. He is 25% owned. It's solely because of the price point and the matchup. It has nothing to do with Ciccone as a pitcher.
I hate it. I just hate it. It's the matchup. Go Oakland. I'm going to have Oakland. Go Oakland.
I'm getting to Ciccone for cheap. I also, my intuition is he's not going to be as popular as projected. I think he's going to come in lower owned.
So that would be useful. If that is the case, then I can get behind having a little bit right now. I have 10% of him. I capped him in the Sims. I can't do it. Like he is so bad. He is horrendous. And it's not that he's just bad in like a moderate way where it's like, oh, you know, I can still make a case for it. He has some upside. No, 10.7% barrel percentage, 18.5% K rate. If you want to say something nice about him, his expected ERA is a lot better than his ERA, 4.12 expected, 5.74 actual. But like, he gives up barrels. He doesn't really get strikeouts, 18.5%. You're just really targeting Oakland. So like for me, I've been on the side of like playing more Oakland bats in some of these spots, not necessarily just as 5-mans. And there's a case for going to a bunch of 5-mans here, but like I do want to get to some of the big boppers there. He doesn't discriminate either. I mean, we got a 238 expected ISO to right-handed bats from Ciccone. So Shane Langlayers, Mr. Rooker, come on down, gentlemen. You're the next contestants on the Please Hit Bombs.
Rockies White Sox is going to be delayed to start. I find it very unlikely that game ever plays at all.
Take it out entirely. I'm not playing it.
Yeah. Especially with the delay, considering it's supposed to, I would say the chance of this game playing at all today, I'd put it like 10% now, maybe even lower.
I would put it at like 5. Yeah, I'm with you.
Some super chats to answer. So if you guys were considering playing it, I'm going to recommend that you don't. Chris Williams, shout out. He gifted out another 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, we love the support as always. Alex Kaiser wants to know, is it suboptimal to play Ober and Gilbert together? Totally fine. I have no issues with Logan Gilbert and Bailey Ober in the same lineup. And then Sotex says, thanks to Eric for the pick 6 and Greg for the solid MLB content. Sotex, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you very much. Your answer to Alex's question, are you doing anything to try to avoid playing Ober and Gilbert together? Are you okay with it?
Absolutely not. So people overthink this, and I think there are multiple times that I've explained this before, but like when a strikeout is worth 2.75 and a win's worth what, 3 on DraftKings? 4. Why are we what?
4.
Oh yeah, 4 on DraftKings, 6 on FanDuel. You get the quality start bonus on FanDuel. Yeah. But 2.75, when you're talking about a 6.5 or a 7.5 K prop, right now, Bailey Ober, like when he opened on all the pick'em, he opened at 7 on Prize Picks. He opened at 7 on Underdog as I was putting everything together there. Bailey Ober's been floundering between 6.5 and 7.5 all the live long day on FanDuel. He's sitting at 6.5 plus 110. He's the high point, minus 115 on the high point of 6.5. So like, there are 7.5s that do exist where you can get that under. It is plus money towards that under by a pretty significant margin now at this point. But again, opened at 7. We're talking about a guy that, you know, you make each one of those, just call it 3 for the sake of math here, and then we'll give him 6. That's 18 fantasy points that you're throwing in from a strikeout projection standpoint. don't be overthinking it and thinking, oh, I can't play two players from the same game. The game environment is also dictating it. We're talking a 7.5 total, juice towards the under. It is just such a better spot here for pitching than a lot of these other game environments. So your ceiling's higher, your floor is higher, everything across the board is higher on these pitchers. Don't try to just target them because, or don't exclude them from being together purely because they're in the same game.
Yeah, I'm playing them. I'm playing both of them a good amount. I'm going to have a bunch of lineups of them together. Any sort of negative correlation between the two, it is baked into the Sims already, but it's not that significant for MLB DFS, especially not on DraftKings, where it becomes, and I mean, on FanDuel, you can only play, one pitcher anyway. The spots like small slates on FanDuel, if there's a pitcher that's really popular, there are times where I'll say like, hey, if I play the pitcher from the other side of the game and he gets the win bonus, that's a little bit more significant on FanDuel. There's leverage from that standpoint. For DraftKings, though, I don't really mind playing two pitchers from the same game together at all.
Same.
Some questions that are coming into the Discord channel. Sniffs1234 wants us to talk about Slate Ciccone, who we did just discuss a little bit, but he also wants to know, basically, are we playing him? And the answer to me is yes. I do have some Oakland stacks for leverage on the other side, but I have a lot more exposure to Ciccone for me personally than I do to the Oakland A's bats.
There is a player starting for Detroit that I've never heard of before. Ryan Kreidler. I don't know who that is.
It's my neighbor.
Oh, that's cool. He sounds like a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy. He likes the game of baseball.
Let's see. Who's this goofball?
Ryan Kreidler. And he's played a bunch here. I don't know why I've never seen this guy. I guess maybe because he has 0 home runs and 0 RBIs.
Well, so he only has 28 plate appearances this year.
24. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of him, and he just came through in the Detroit lineup and screwed up everything for me. Andy Ibanez is also in that lineup, which is a little weird.
His career WRC plus is 26.
It's adorable. It's so cute. Oh, good job, bud.
So, yeah, that's like the definition. Actually, I was going to say definition of replacement level player, but he's probably below replacement level player. But yeah, that's Ryan
26
Kreidler.
is bad.
Ryan Kreidler.
I just got some bets in to get Alec Marsh. We're shorting his outs, and we're going to short Tristan McKenzie outs. I think that's the best way to bet this. And, let whatever happens, happens. But 16.5 pitching outs is plus 106 on Caesars. You can't tell me that that isn't good value if that game starts. And if it doesn't start, you get it refunded. So, screw it.
That is not the best Detroit Tigers lineup. Cream asked us if we're getting to the Tigers as a stack. I'm going to have to rerun stuff because of the fact that the lineup is different than what was expected. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves talking about stacks. I liked the Tigers.
They were my second highest owned stack going up against Plesac. Plesac might be the worst starter in baseball.
That was, when he got, there was somebody else who was supposed to start. There was a late scratch and Plesac got put in. It was a game against the Brewers. That was one of the best spots for late swapping that we had of the entire baseball season. But that aside, I think it makes sense to get to Detroit for sure as secondary stacks to save some money. I don't know how keen I am to roster Ryan Kreidler, some of these guys at the bottom of the order. But yeah, I really like the Tigers and some individual bats for value. Jeff Williams left us a super chat. He says he's playing the 888 on DK. Suggestions on pitchers. So the pitchers that I think you want to have are probably Bailey Ober and Logan Gilbert.
With you. Yeah, I love both of those.
Yeah, those are the pitchers that I end up with the most of. So I'm going to say Bailey Ober, Logan Gilbert. I think that's the best pitching combination that you could have there. Anything else you want to add about the DraftKings pitchers, Eric?
Nope. Very, very, very gross pitching slate. I would say Gilbert and Ober are rightfully pulling some of the ownership there. Max Scherzer not going to pitch far enough in, so I don't even have him in my pool. So if he strikes out 8 Baltimore guys, sounds great. I did bet first 5 for Texas at plus 115, so that was an enjoyable experience for me. But Landon Knack, again, it is 0.7% ownership on a disgusting pitcher slate. He's in San Francisco. They have sub 4. It's a 3.8 implied run total for San Francisco. I don't understand the 0.7% ownership. He could have no strikeout upside, and I would still land on a couple of shares here. And I think that there is room for that to grow based on his pitch mix. He's 5 starts in. We could definitely see him, figure it out and start to generate more swing and miss. But Landon Knack, this is a dude that I have 18% of, and he is at 0.7% ownership. That doesn't happen every day.
All right, so let's go and talk about some of these FanDuel pitchers. There's a pitcher I really like on FanDuel, and once again, pitching generally what we talk about on FanDuel applies to DraftKings. Here's an exception. Bailey Ober is $9K on 9,800 on FanDuel, so a little bit more expensive, but all the pitchers have tended to be a little bit more expensive on FanDuel this year, and he's only 10% owned. The entire field is going to roster Charlie Morton. He's over 20% owned. He's really the only chalk on FanDuel. It's kind of spread out beyond that. I really like getting to Bailey Ober at $9,800 on FanDuel.
As do I. His K-prop is out of control. Seattle strikes out the most against righties. Everything is primed for him to be a guy that, again, I don't like rostering him. I like rostering him in Seattle against Seattle.
Yeah. So give me Bailey Ober over on FanDuel. I know we like him on DraftKings as well. So it's not like some sort of, crazy analysis or anything like that. He's pitching against Seattle. They're a team that strikes out a lot. Bailey Ober's pitched pretty well this year. But I just really like you're getting Bailey Ober 10% ownership on FanDuel. I think he serves as a great pivot off of somebody like Charlie Morton, who's over 20% owned. Is there anything else you notice that's different about DraftKings versus FanDuel that we should be shouting out?
A couple of things. So obviously my boy Landon Knack. I'm thinking about more on a 2-pitcher site, but it is still somewhat gettable considering he's at 0.7% owned over there at 7,400. I like him more than I like Frankie Montas going up against St. Louis at 7,900, and he's pulling 3% ownership. Nick Pivetta at 9,100. We didn't talk about him on DK. He's a boom bust option. San Diego, they are the best at avoiding strikeouts against righties. I do think Jake Cronenworth, somebody you can have some investment in the prop streets, but Nick Pivetta, he also has really good strikeout stuff. This can be a play both sides of it kind of deal for me. At 5% ownership on FanDuel, I like pulling the trigger a little bit more because if it really goes well, you're actually getting paid off for it at 9,100 there. 6 innings, probably 7 or 8 strikeouts to go with it if he gets 6 innings there. I think Nick Pivetta probably a more interesting option for FanDuel where at 5%, you were getting a ton of leverage on a guy with some of the best strikeout stuff. It's just dealing with the power. He gives up a massive amount of power to both sides. And well, I think on FanDuel, I'd rather embrace it at 5% than on DK at 12-15.
So with that in mind, let's go ahead and build some lineups in the lineup generator. I don't see any other questions coming across about pitchers. Jordan's already got it pulled up here. Considering the size of the slate, let's just start with DraftKings. Nothing with slates locking at different times. But let's go chalky lineups. There's no kind of real crazy chalk or anything, and it's a big slate, lots of options. Let's see what we end up getting to, making some chalk lineups. So Jordan, do your thing there. Save some lineups, discard some. Let's see what we end up getting to. Also, want to shout out that if you guys want to sign up for the lineup generator, we've got player projections, ownership projections in here. It's going to build lineups for you. You can make some inputs like, do you want balanced, contrarian, or chalky lineups? It's less than $15 to sign up for this. It also comes with access to our Discord channel. Sign up using the link below in the YouTube description box. Pitchers, lots of Logan Gilbert, lots of Bailey Ober. I'm on board with that. I assume you're cool with that as well, Eric?
Very much so.
Stacks. Looks like we are getting to a bunch of the Arizona Diamondbacks up top there. Ketel Marte, Randall Grichuk. So our most rostered team here, it is actually the Arizona Diamondbacks. Is that surprising to you?
Not that much. Against righties, JP Sears is a gold mine, 230 expected ISO against. Gigantic amount of power that he's giving up to them. You get Gurriel, 191 expected ISO against Southpaws. Christian Walker, nearly 300 expected ISO. He has a 319 actual ISO against Southpaws with only a 235 BABIP. So I think the ISO comes down a little bit, and I think the BABIP probably goes up a little bit and finds somewhere in the middle. He has 13 home runs against Southpaws on the season. That is wild. Grichuk, 253 expected ISO. Suarez, 196 expected ISO. This is a team that is just wild. Holy shit, DeJounte Murray just got traded to the Pelicans.
That's a weird trade.
What?
So I assume that's for Ingram, right?
Has to be.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Murray for it. It's kind of weird though, because why would Murray, to me, like Ingram is the headline of that, not Murray. So maybe it isn't Ingram.
I mean, did they trade like, is Atlanta trying to shed salary? Like,
Well, I think they're just trying to rebuild.
but then get rid of Trae Young first. Trae Young's like Trae Young is better than I thought he was in some of the advanced analytics, but like there's no doubt that defensively come playoff time, Trae Young's a little bit of an issue. He was connected to the Spurs, but like if you're the Spurs, just get DeJounte Murray back, but that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I'd rather have Trae Young than DeJounte Murray.
I would rather have DeJounte Murray. Remember when DeJounte Murray almost went to the Timberwolves instead of Gobert? That was wild times.
In hindsight, that would have been very bad.
It would have been very, very bad for us. Yes. And again, I was very wrong about that. But at the same time, this is a weird one. I'm very curious what New Orleans is sending back to Atlanta, how this is working.
Yeah. I mean, the one that makes the most logical sense is Brandon Ingram, but it's weird that that wouldn't be
McCollum?
written anywhere.
Yeah, McCollum doesn't make sense. You don't want McCollum if you're Atlanta. That would make no sense.
Yeah, so we'll see there. I've got a new set of sims running right here for the different Detroit Tigers lineup that we weren't necessarily expecting. But I want to know from you, Eric, if you wouldn't mind pulling the lineup generator back up here, Jordan. Oh, we got trade summary. It is okay. It is DeJounte Murray for Larry Nance Jr. to match salaries and 2 first-round picks. So Pelicans are trying to just build a team that's a good team. So you got that starting lineup is going to be what? McCollum, Murray,
Ingram. Well, I mean, if Ingram gets moved, then you're going to end up having it be.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do at center.
So they drafted the kid, the Baylor kid. He's going to be your center. He's going to be your starting center. The Baylor rookie. He's defense. He's like 7'1". He is long too. The Baylor center. I can't pronounce his name, but he's a really nice piece for New Orleans there. Zion will play the 4. They'll have, multiple shooters that come in at the 3, specifically my dude. What's his face? I'll think of it here in 2 seconds. But yeah, this is a wild trade.
Yeah. Hey, that's a fun team. That's like a dark horse contender.
Yeah. I mean, if Zion's healthy, Zion's a top 10 player in the league when healthy. Like, and I know people don't feel that way at times because he's fat and they overall like to hate on him. But Trey Murphy III, that'll be your starting 3. He's nice. Trey Murphy is nice. We're talking like a 62% true shooter.
No, Ingram.
No, I'm saying if they move Ingram, Dyson Daniels also going to be traded to the Hawks as part of the DeJounte Murray deal. That makes sense. Because I was going to say, it can't just be Nance.
All right.
Wow.
There we have it. Fun team. Yeah. All right, back to baseball, because we only got 20 minutes to go into the lock here. You can see that right on the screen. The teams that we're getting from the lineup generator, the Diamondbacks, the Red Sox, the Braves, the Tigers were showing up most frequently. If you're building one tournament lineup, we'll talk about large field GPPs first, Eric. Then we'll talk about single entry. If you're building one large field tournament lineup, who is the team you're getting the most exposure to?
The Detroit Tigers. Zach Plesac is as bad as it gets. I was waiting for this Detroit lineup. The reason I brought up both of those guys is that I had to make some changes to the lineup that I was planning on playing in single entry. And Zach Plesac, 736 expected slugging through 36 batted ball events this season. He is no good and terrible. He has been for 3 years consecutively. He had a 5.28 expected ERA in 2022. That went up to 5.48 in very limited sample size in 2023. This year, a 9.90 expected ERA through a couple of starts. He is not a major league quality pitcher. He throws at 90. He throws balls like a beanbag chair. Very comfy, very easy to hit. Give me all of the Detroit Tigers today. My highest owned stack in large field and the team that I'm going to be utilizing in single entry.
Okay. Boy, I'm stuck between a bunch of spots here. Because how popular do you think Slade Ciccone gets in single entry? My gut feeling is not very high.
I don't think he gets high enough to justify it, but I love Oakland for large field because I do think Slade will be at least 15% in large field. We have him up to 25%. I think that's a little bit high now, but I really like Oakland for large field. They're my 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth highest owned stack, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I'm doing a rerun of lineups with all of the Detroit stuff, like I mentioned before. I kind of am leaning towards getting to the Tigers in single entry, because here's the reason I brought up Slade Ciccone. There's only 3 pitchers we have projected to be popular. It's Logan Gilbert, it's Bailey Ober. I don't want to stack against either of them in single entry. So then if I'm like, all right, if I'm looking for the leverage I normally would, the other popular pitcher is Slade Ciccone, but I don't think he's going to be all that popular in single entry. So if that's going to be the case, then I'm just kind of playing the offense that I like the most, that I don't think the field is going to be on very much. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't find a really good, compelling leverage spot to be getting to. So then if I go ahead and I look at the stacks that I'm getting to in large field tournaments, the one I'm getting the most of, Eric, is the Atlanta Braves going up against Martin Perez.
So the Atlanta Braves are my second highest owned stack. Martin Perez is terrible as well. And I like these righties. The salaries are also very, very workable. Even left on left, Matt Olson is sub 5K now. We're going to run into like the Braves getting back to being the Braves at some point in time. And you want to be along for the ride as these salaries start to get up there. If you look like batter by batter, Jared Kelenic, left on left, leading off, been pretty good, up to 3.6K, but that's still more than workable. Ozzie Albies is the most overpriced batter based on relative to what they've been doing, 5.5K, but still not that crazy prohibitive. Otherwise, Riley is sub 5.5K, Olson's sub 5K. Other than Ozuna, it's pretty easy to get to the back half of this lineup and combine them with 2 or 3 of those guys. Sean Murphy, 3.1K. Wild to see how far down he's dropped. Adam Duvall still has great numbers against lefties, even though he's been horrible. 3.2K for him. Atlanta going up against Pittsburgh here, and Martin Perez. I absolutely love it. Orlando Arcia, that's who I was thinking of, batting 8th.
I have so much exposure to Sean Murphy.
3.1K. He's my second highest owned catcher.
Yeah, I really, really like getting to Sean Murphy. He's not only my most rostered catcher, he's my most rostered hitter, period.
Makes sense. I love Atlanta today. Second highest owned stack.
Yeah, so that is a spot that I certainly like getting to. And now, even with the slightly watered down version of the Detroit Tigers offense, I get to a pretty good amount of them. I have 8% exposure to the Detroit Tigers as a stack overall. So I like getting to Detroit, but single entry as well as large field, my priority team to be getting to, it is the Atlanta Braves. And yeah, I mean, if you look at Martin Perez, he's a guy who in the past I didn't used to really stack against, not because I ever thought he was good or anything like that. He had the one decent season, but it was more so because he was a guy who was such a heavy ground ball pitcher that he didn't really yield a lot of really big starts. His ground ball rate is not the same as it once was. It's 41% this year. He's not some crazy ground ball pitcher. He's just this crazy shitty pitcher now. He's a 4.71 ERA, 5.7 expected ERA. He does give up more home runs now than he did at one point, which also is because more balls get hit in the air against him. So Martin Perez, if you go through his game logs, in his 11 starts this year, he's given up 9 home runs. It's a little inflated because of one start he had against the Brewers. But he had a start against the Brewers this year, Eric, where he pitched 5 innings. He gave up 9 runs and 5 homers. That's the kind of ceiling there is against Martin Perez. So I like this spot for the Atlanta Braves. I know I've been probably too high on them on a bunch of slates over the course of the last month and a half. You're getting modest ownership on them against a really shitty pitcher.
It's okay, Birdie. It's okay.
Anything else that stands out to you about these lineups? If not, we'll build some lineups for FanDuel.
You had no idea what I was talking about.
Absolutely no idea at all.
Yep, it's okay.
Anybody in chat have any idea what he was talking about? Jordan?
It's okay, Birdie. No? Okay. Something my wife sends to me all the time because it's always like, It's this like these two cartoon things or whatever, and then this little bird where it's like, "That's okay, birdie." And it's like my wife sends it to me is in like the way that I was supposed to treat my wife after she got done at her workout class and the way that I actually treated her. And it's like a side-by-side comparison. Yeah.
How do you treat her after a workout class?
It's just that I don't say anything, and she wants to like be told that she's very, very special and that, hey, tell me thank you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go back to work now, but it's no big deal.
No, but it's part of the deal, right? She works
Yeah.
out, you work on trying to make sure you maximize your returns in the $3 MLB contest for the
That's
night.
exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to double check my portfolio and make sure that I don't have any Martin Perez in here to fuck up shit, honey. This is important. Okay.
Let's go ahead and look at those FanDuel lineups now, if you wouldn't mind building them, Jordan. And same deal, build chalky lineups. We'll see what we get to on FanDuel so we could fill the people in before we get to lock here, which isn't all that far away. We've only got 12 minutes to go till lock. It is approaching very rapidly.
Wow.
Lineups. I'm trying to make sure I get mine updated and uploaded here. We do have all of the lineups in for the individual teams now, which is helpful because I don't like doing the late swap deal. Hopefully, we don't get any late scratches today. That would be cool on a Friday night. Oh boy, look at this, Eric. We have a shit ton, and I mean a shit ton of exposure coming into us here from the Arizona Diamondbacks. They are in 84% of Ketel Marte, 63% Christian Walker, 53% Lourdes Gurriel, 50% of Randall Grichuk. Let's see, what is the most recent updated data in the top stacks on the Arizona Diamondbacks? How popular is this team as a stack? Not that crazy. They're popular, but nothing too wild, 11%. Considering the price tags on them, the Diamondbacks look great on FanDuel. These guys are insanely cheap.
Okay. That's a little aggressive for me, but at the same time, I get it.
I mean, the amount we're getting to them is crazy, but I think that they are the best stack to be getting to on FanDuel.
I would agree so. Yes.
So, like the Arizona Diamondbacks, I'm kind of surprised the Tigers aren't picking up more ownership here. We do have them as the overall top value stack on FanDuel. If you do want a slightly lower owned team, Tigers 7% ownership. Really like them on FanDuel, just as we did over on DraftKings. So rostering them against Zach Plesac makes a good amount of sense, especially if we're going to be paying up for a guy like Bailey Ober over at pitcher. If you were playing one lineup, though, on FanDuel, Eric, who would be the stack that you would go to? Just one lineup on FanDuel.
I think probably... I mean, look at the Cleveland exposure. I have Cleveland out of my player pool, so that can't happen. It's going to be Detroit. I'm just so heavy on Detroit on DK again that it's hard to recommend anything else. I'm revamping it. Plus, we got some interesting guys that kind of make salaries work over there. Again, Banya's cheap. You've got no Malloy. Oh, I had Malloy, but it's not the Malloy character out there for Detroit today. It's going to be who else do I have there? Because they had a different construction. Winseal Perez is now leading off there. He's super cheap on FanDuel. Bierling's batting third, super cheap. Canna's back in that lineup, batting cleanup. Colt Keith now in the 5-hole. He's 26 on DK, but sitting around that on FanDuel. I mean, 1 through 8, really, really good. I'm not playing this Creedler fellow as much because he is just god-awful, but pretty sure I'm going to get to 1 through 8 considerably here. I think that's a really, really good stack for FanDuel as well.
The Braves are more popular on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. So all things being considered, price point, ownership, matchup. If I'm playing one lineup on FanDuel, give me a Detroit Tigers stack. 7% ownership. We have an 11% chance to be the top value stack. Also 7% top stack odds. I really like Detroit against Zach Plesac. Same as we liked him over on DraftKings. Let's see. If you go back to the player exposures, Jordan, I want to see if we scroll down what pitchers we got to. So Morton showed up in a ton of lineups. That's a little bit more than I would like of Charlie Morton. I don't like Logan Webb really at all at 9K. So I don't like the pitchers that the lineup generator gave us on FanDuel. The offenses, I do like those though. So let's talk about the rest of the stacks on the slate, Eric. Are there any really contrarian offenses that you find yourself getting to?
Oakland. I'm playing a lot of Oakland against Slate Ciccone. I have 9% Oakland now. They're my 4th highest owned stack in my last rerun. I am okay with that, actually. I think that's going to end up holding.
I have a contrarian stack that I'm
Ooh,
getting
tell me.
exposure. What's that?
I said, tell me.
It is the Pittsburgh Pirates. So the
Okay.
Pirates have a matchup against Charlie Morton. Morton is certainly not bad at this point in his career, but he's not as good as he was a couple of years ago. He's a 4.2 ERA, a 4.41 expected ERA. He's going to be popular. Of all the popular pitchers outside of Drew Thorpe, and Drew Thorpe's ownership is probably just going to come down because of the weather concerns now. But Charlie Morton is somebody who is picking up ownership that I'm underweight to the field too. So that in itself, I'm getting some leverage going up against Charlie Morton, but it's also the way Charlie Morton gives up his runs. He's always been a pitcher with a fairly high home run to fly ball rate. So this Pittsburgh Pirates offense that the field is not really playing. We've got the Pirates. Let's see. So FanDuel, they are 2% owned, and Charlie Morton is the most popular pitcher on FanDuel. So you're getting some leverage there. On DraftKings, they are 1% owned against Charlie Morton. I'm way overweight to the field on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not that I think they're the highest likelihood stack of having success, but Charlie Morton is overowned and a little bit overrated in this spot, in my opinion.
Okay, that's more than fair. I'm here to rock for it.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, 10% of the Pittsburgh Pirates for me. The three teams that I ended up with the most exposure to is the Atlanta Braves, #1 by far, followed by the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Arizona Diamondbacks. What are your three most rostered stacks, Eric?
They are the Detroit Tigers, the Atlanta Braves, and the Oakland Athletics now. Oh, nope. The Boston Red Sox, #3.
Yeah,
against
I've
Randy
got
Vasquez.
some
He's
of
terrible.
Oakland as a secondary stack. I do have 7% of them as a 3-man. So some secondary stacks with Oakland getting some potential leverage off Slate Ciccone. Like I said before, I'm kind of skeptical of how highly owned he's going to be. But if he is, I will have some spots there for leverage. Were there any final questions in Discord? Yes, Einstein wants to know, do we like the Rangers tonight? Is that a team you got exposure to at all, Eric? The Texas Rangers?
No.
I have 4%
1%.
of them.
1%. The Tigers lineup sucks. What are you talking about, Eric? Zach Plesac sucks worse. That's why. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, Zach Plesac. Pull up his numbers to go over right here. And then also get your home run pick ready to go, Eric.
9.90 expected ERA.
He's only made 2 starts, 8.68 ERA, 9.9 expected ERA. Last year, Plesac had a 7.59 ERA, 5.48 expected ERA. In 2022, he had an okay 4.31 ERA, but a lot of good luck, 5.28 expected ERA. So, I mean, this guy, Eric said it before, he might be the worst pitcher in baseball right now. It's hard to disagree looking at his numbers. Even in AAA this year, he's made 13 starts in AAA with a 5.42 ERA, 6.04 FIP. Last year, he made 19 appearances in AAA and had a 6.08 ERA, 7.55 FIP. He's bad. I'm totally cool with stacking against him. I like the Detroit Tigers as a team to be rostering today. Home run pick, Eric. Who are you going with the Dom tonight?
Yeah, it's got to be lefty power in that ballpark. Anaheim, third best for lefty power over the last 3 years. Riley Green, 493 expected slugging, 47.6% hard hit, coming off of a disappointing day yesterday. Detroit definitely disappointed everybody yesterday who rostered them, but had a really good pitcher on the mound yesterday for LA. It was an unknown quantity. He came to fruition. Zach Plesac, more of a known quantity, more of a gas can. So we're going to fire him up. Riley Green goes yard.
For myself, I am going to go with Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy is my most rostered hitter. He's my most rostered catcher. I like picking on Martin Perez today. Give me Sean Murphy to go yard and hit a home run against Martin Perez and the Pittsburgh Pirates. No other questions came into chat. So let's see what we have for home run picks from YouTube. We've got Casey Leatherwood is going with Lourdes Gurriel as well as Ryan O'Hearn. Ricardo Nelson has got Francisco Lindor. Taco 933 has got Austin Riley. Charles Moran has got Corey Seager. We've got JJ Bleday from Chris Williams. Francisco Rubio is going with Yoshida. Boy, that sounds like a pick that's coming from Jordan Klein. Alex Serra has got Rafael Devers. We've got Doug Dobbs also going with Rafael Devers. And then we've got Almost Made also, but everybody going with Rafael Devers. Dahmer's got Murphy and Duvall. He says they're going to go back to back. It's a very specific call. Then we've got Game On, Let's Go going with Noleve Marte. We've got Andy Melman going with Geloff. Aaron Hines has got Francisco Alvarez. JB Hughes has got Matt Olson. And then we've got Tripp going with Anthony Santander. Well, Malukar is going with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Barnaby O'Toole has got Randall Grichuk. And Louis, I'm not sure that he's picking a home run pick, but he just says in general that he likes Aaron Judge's dong. And then we've got Luis Rengifo from Free Scotty. Okay. And then Jazzy Faye Plays has got Lourdes Gurriel. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're looking to play Pick Six, go ahead and do it. There's going to be MMA over the weekend. They've got all sports covered there. Eric puts out a lot of good Pick Six content for you guys to check out. And if you're looking to sign up for any packages at Stochastic, links are below in the YouTube description box. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and I hope you all make some money on the slate tonight. We'll see you back here on Monday.